all these anatomically perfect women on
The
YouTube
AI
or
generated
Facebook,
ones.
and I guarantee they're AI generated. So,
Uh,
but it just is going to make women more, anxious about having that perfection,
mhm.
you know.
Well, we're
So
live, so that's an introduction.
there you go.
Here we are,
Mm.
live on a Tuesday night for Talk Time with TJ, Triple T number 174 on April 29th, 2025. Want to thank all of you guys for tuning in. And out on YouTube, we are live on YouTube as well. Got to say hi, Mom, up in Minnesota. Yeah. And we're sending good energies, emerald green energies, to our lovely Miss Holly, who has found another migraine to deal with. And so we're hoping we can get that out of her system quickly. But for those of you on YouTube, quick favor to ask, could you please do all the YouTube stuff that costs you nothing but helps me out? Click the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave comments, share it with other people, all that stuff. It's not for me. Okay, it is for me a little bit. I do have a little bit of an ego, but just to help as many people as possible, which is the reason that we're doing this. I also have a website that I would love you to evaluate, check out, all the above. We've been doing some upgrades and stuff again because, it's kind of like building a house while we're at it. Yes, the most expensive words in any project, while we're at it. So, see if you can see what changes we've made, and if you have any suggestions for any others, I'd appreciate hearing them from you. The website, in case you're wondering, well, how do I find it? It's simple. TheTSWB.com. The Tall Skinny White Boy.com. That is what it stands for, and I will stand by that. Been the Tall Skinny White Boy since way before the internet. And on there, you'll find some of the things that I have the privilege of helping people with, such as depression, anxiety, phobias, PTSD, grief. I get to work with athletes from beginner all the way up to the pro level. I've been allowed to and enjoy doing corporate coaching, relationship stuff. Oh my goodness gracious, I've picked up 2 more clients for relationships. So apparently the universe wants people finding their real partners, not just the next loser in a different meat suit. So if you know anybody out there that's trying to do the swipe left, swipe right, oh my gosh, this one was a fright, have them give me a call. I do offer a free, that's right, no charge to you, 30-minute consultation, 30 minutes to bend my ear and let me know what kind of challenges you're up against. And if I'm a fit, I will let you know. If I am not a fit, I will let you know, and I will do my best to find somebody that can find the solutions that you are looking for. Did I miss anything other than
Mom.
anything through all of that? Okay. Well, then it's time to introduce the tie of the week. Yes, I started this back in 2024, January. And now we're going through the collection once more. And I didn't want to burn out all of my cute little Pooh and Disney and all those guys. So today it's just a standard power tie, but kind of classic. Got some good colors in there, so I think. So that's the tie of the week. See, what else? Who's got something good to share with us? That good, huh? Lenore.
I didn't know if Mark was going to jump in. I had lots of good things. One thing in particular, and I know this this group and working with TJ has taught me anywhere, anytime, any place, for any reason to work with people, and it was something I had really took a very long time to get acclimated to and to really feel like I could do that, as in wouldn't think twice about it, would just go right in. And I had gone to a TEDx event this weekend. And while I was there, I got to talk with a number of people, and I happened to notice some things. And I think I'm also, I have a tendency to pull people into that space very quickly and easily. I think it's just kind of a skill I did not know that I had, and it's one that I cherish very much because I feel like I could help people wherever they are. And I was even able to help one in the middle of cocktail hour and help the other when we were at a restaurant bar-ish later through the day. And what was amazing was literally a firestorm could have come through both of those events. I wouldn't have budged. Nothing was more important than being there and helping those people. And it was very, very very, very I can't think of the word. Very moving.
Yes.
Hmm.
Awesome. And get ready, young lady, because now that the universe knows that you have this skill, how do I know? 'Cause, Dr. David tossed plenty of them at me anywhere, anytime, for any reason, and now it's just absolutely that.
And
It,
I remember you had done that when I met you at HTL last year. And I remember thinking, it's not quiet, it's not a great place. And you were like, it didn't matter. Nothing was more important than standing there. And it's so funny how many times I go back to like a Harry Potter reference. And can I tell you, I haven't read Harry Potter since they literally came out in like the early 2000s. And one of the several things that have stuck out to me is that when we're doing the work that we do, especially when we see something, do you guys have either of you read Harry Potter or seen the movie? Okay, there's one piece where they call it like hunting Horcruxes, and it's these basically villainous pieces that are embedded in an object or then in a person. And that's what it feels like. It's like you're hunting these demons down and you're finding them. And I found the room of requirement to be very helpful, as in whatever you need is existing in this space, and the cloak of invisibility, because people would say like, don't, I'm trying not to cry here. And I'm like, nobody can see us. We're under the cloak of invisibility. It didn't matter. And that really gave a relief to them. And what was remarkable was just seeing people not even make eye contact with me, not even look over in my direction. They had no idea that I was there. It just was effortless for them to navigate away, which was breathtaking and remarkable. It's literally like you move yourself into a different time and space.
isn't it amazing how
It's
metaphors?
amazing.
Yeah,
Like it's like
metaphors
the
can
greatest
just.
thing I've ever experienced in my life.
I had, my mind goes back to John Masters, again,
Uh,
and you know, we were out clubbing using our, super friends powers to get past the velvet ropes. But I'm coming back in at 3 in the morning, and John's there at the Bamboo Lounge. He's like, Mark, you gotta come here. You gotta talk to this girl. I'm like, dude, we gotta be up in like 4 hours to get to class. He's no, you gotta talk. I'm like, all right. Again, I swear, again, he helped dozens upon dozens of strangers, because they were like, again, like I said, they kept, the universe kept shoving things at him, and he just, he just talked to him, and a skill I've yet to acquire is just doesn't have to do any technique. It doesn't have to do any. He was able to do. I saw him, a kid with crutches, throw the crutches away.
Wow.
But it's like 3 a.m. He's like, Mark, you gotta come here. I'm like, dude, I just got back from the club. No, just take him. And 45 minutes later, I'm still listening. Yeah, I just met him, and and all of a sudden, all my fears went away, all my anxieties. Like,
Wow.
I was like, and that was just in his nature to, like I said, whenever he saw that, he was able to just talk to people and fix them, and
Wow.
a skill I wish I was, but I get that a lot. Like I said, people, because I think I'm authentic, and I think that's describes, all of us. We
Very
don't
much
have
so.
much of a social mask. So we're open, and like I said, and when things come our way, again, you can make somebody's day just by, a compliment or a smile, and again, that's how I walk through the world is, you know, but
Like the most pleasant way of living.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's fun,
It
to
is.
be that resource, to be that, that go-to, and it doesn't mean again, I get a business card. I just trying to, help people.
Yeah.
And it's, but, anybody, anywhere, anytime, because I'm me wherever I go. And I think that's the
Aw.
core, I think that's the core of authenticity,
Yeah.
you know, so,
That is very cool.
It,
yeah.
and I've
I was talking to
been.
people in the hospital and helping them out. I was like, um, and
that that's the epitome of anytime, anywhere, for any reason.
Yeah.
mhm.
Even my mom got to watch me uh, the one night where,
Like Minnesota or something, right?
yeah, I was visiting and it was late. We were hungry, decided we were going to get a quick bite to eat, and we show up and the place is just dead. One other couple finishing up their meal, and there's mom and I coming in, and
He's here. Hey,
all
Holly.
right, Holly's
Sending
here.
you energy.
Awesome. Yeah, I did a mind reading, or mind read. I did a face reading on one of the ladies that worked there, and she had a major ab reaction, just like that.
Is that what you call it when people are very sensitive around you? Like you can see it. Do you call it an abreaction or
It ab reaction is they'll start crying like just like it just hit, just
okay.
Laughing, sweating.
uncontrollable emotional
Okay, I
outburst.
didn't know what to call it.
Yeah. And it can be a lot of different things. It can be laughing uncontrollably. It can be hiccups. It can be burps. It can be all sorts of sweating profusely.
Uh-huh.
Even though it's freezing cold outside, all of a sudden they just and
Okay. I
and
kept calling it like light people up, but it didn't really feel like that was the right phrase either.
yeah. But yeah, she had a full on major ab reaction, and her coworkers are all standing there, and I said, the best part is you don't have to tell me what it is. I don't have to know what it is. You don't have to know what it is. You survived
That's
it.
hard. Yeah.
And did the time and date uh, protocol with her. And when I got done, she goes, I feel like I just lost 400 pounds.
Yeah.
I said, you did. You've been carrying that around for so long. And she goes, can I give you a hug? I'm like, sure. Gave her a big hug, and man, she like hugged me. Like it wasn't one of those little butterfly hugs. It was like, so
Butterfly hugs.
yeah. And it was cool to have mom there watching it.
Yeah.
So, right,
That
Bob?
is awesome. There was bananas. I had another question, or I had another thought. I know. Well, I know for sure. Definitely the work that
When you see an ab reaction, you suppose again the standard one is okay. Just calm down, tend to your breathing.
Oh, that's what it was.
Yes. Yeah. If you're in a situation that you don't feel that you can control,
Mm-hmm.
and the scene fades and you tend to your breathing, and the
Yeah.
scene fades and you tend to your, and you just keep saying that, and you can start up matching their energy.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they're really freaking out, and you go just under their energy and you
Mm-hmm.
bring it
Went
down
down. Yeah.
until they are back to.
Yeah. There was oh, I had them look at their phone, like what's the date, what's the time, and come
Yeah.
back into the present moment. And then I was also going to say this group makes things so spectacular to have ongoing conversations and to hear people's perspectives, but also, so we don't always talk about clients, we also talk about words. And when we talk about different definitions and our own perspectives of them. So this group has been absolutely pivotal in my life. So thank you.
Thank you, because
You guys rock.
without you guys showing up, I'm just a talking head, and that was one thing I did not want to be.
Not want to be.
Yeah.
Max headroom.
What'd you say?
Max headroom.
Yes. And if you know what that is, you actually remember when MTV played music.
A long, long
I was just
time
I was just
ago.
listening to the first music, the TV video, the uh was it radio killed the video star.
Oh,
Yeah.
video killed
Video
the
killed the radio
radio
star.
star.
That was the very first
Such a
music
good one.
video
Yep.
on MTV.
Such a
And that's the master's level. The PhD level is can you remember what year that was?
Yep.
I don't know, so I'm asking.
We'll have to ask chat.
That would have
Yeah.
been 80,
84?
83 or 84.
84? Yeah.
I was gonna go with
Yeah.
87.
Yeah.
Oh, we are all wrong.
But
Oh.
August 1st, 1981, after midnight,
Oh.
the broadcast of Video Killed the Radio Star by the Bugles. Stuff.
yeah, well, there were some of those years that got a little fuzzy, just saying.
We won't tell.
But
I was amazed looking back at a little bit of my history, revelation that it only took me 3 years going from direct care at the institution to becoming a psychologist. I had the training, but there was politics involved. But I was like, wow, I went from 80 to 83, and I was already, like I said, well along the way to becoming, and I had a lot of mentors along the way. Some of them are in this gathering, but I thank everyone that helped me become what I am and what I'm becoming. So more and more each and every day. That's a
I'm
positive
so glad you
affirmation.
brought that up, my friend, because I'm going to do our intro quick. For those of you that are watching the live feed or the recording for the first time, welcome to Triple T. The way it works, it's a 2-hour webinar. The first hour is my chance to try and get through 3 topics. And if you've been around for a while, you all know how challenging sometimes it can be to get through all 3. And the second hour is open mic, open platform. Anybody on the call can ask a question or bring up a topic, and I let anybody on the call answer first because I like to learn as well. And after everybody else has answered, if I feel that I have something else to add, that's when I add my 2 centavos. So without any further ado, we're going to jump right in because Mr. Mark did a great segue right for topic number 1. And the topics tonight are gratitude, mind reading, and hello. And gratitude, and I know it no longer shocks me that things just magically show up on Triple T, and people often tell me that's exactly what I needed to hear tonight. This is exactly what I was. You brought up the topic. I had the question, and then you answered it. And so, in the gratitude, a lot of also disclaimer. I chase a lot of squirrels. My squirrels have squirrels who know squirrels who bring their cousins squirrels for distractions, or so if it seems like sometimes we bounce around, it's because squirrels keep running up going, new question, new idea, download. And back to gratitude. When you brought that up, Mark, yes, that I recently did a little type up of who is TJ, and it's because I've had so many people asking me, well, what is it you do? And this is like the third version. There is more that I've added, and my mom can validate that that's what I've been blessed to do. And I only have a college degree in hotel, restaurant, and property management. The rest of that was right place, right time, mentors and blessings and travel and all the above. And in the last couple of years, even a little longer than that, I was still in San Diego. I realized I needed to reach out to the mentors who were willing to pour into me when they didn't have to. Growing up in the little village that I did in Minnesota then, of 187 people then, and Grandma wrote the gossip column for the local newspaper. Mayberry may have been a TV show for a bunch of you, but it was kind of a documentary for me. But the best part was there were so many people willing to pour into the kids. I got to hang out with master carpenters when I could hold a hammer with both hands and work in wood shops, like actual. Shout out to Grandpa Hugh McCorder and Uncle Hugh McCorder, aka Carl McCorder, who allowed me to hang out and learn about building stuff. And huge shout out to Andy Lund, who allowed an 11-year-old kid to hang out in his mechanic shop and start doing work and getting paid. And I tell you what, all I wanted to do was get done with the day of school so I could rush home, have a little bite to eat while I watched cartoons, and then change clothes and rush up and start working on anything Andy would teach me and allow me to work on. And by 12, I was rebuilding alternators and starters and changing tires and doing oil changes, and I got to call him up and thank him. I got to see Uncle Hugh last summer and thank him. And the gratitude for that taught me to turn around and pour into others. I tell a lot of
And
people.
indeed you do.
Thank you. I tell a lot of people, even Dr. David, right place, right time, open mind. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here chatting with you guys. And so that level of gratitude is there for what got me here. But a lot of people, a lot of my clients, I've had to teach how much gratitude are you giving for your younger versions? Every decision, every choice you have ever made in your life has brought you right here, right now, to this very second. And what you look back and take from it, and the stories you tell yourself, and the amount of gratitude that you allow yourself to have and feel will affect where you are tomorrow. And I don't know if it was last week or the week before or something like that, we had talked about setting up things for tomorrow person so that tomorrow person can be grateful for yesterday person. Except some people forget to say thank you to yesterday person, and last year person, and 10-year ago person. And if you're blessed enough to have memorabilia, pictures, and you go back and you look at those pictures of 20-year-old you, 15-year-old you, 5-year-old you, what are your reactions when you see them? Do you see the
reactions have been very different.
No, go ahead.
My reactions over the years have been very different. There is much more empathy and understanding for those younger versions.
There
used to be a lot of hate.
Yeah. I had some questions about why I still have pictures of old girlfriends. Because they taught me something. Every one of them did. That's how I came up with Triple P, the perfect partner protocol. Because I realized, what was the common denominator? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Lots of lessons. Mark.
All right. Yeah, I started to do that after we talked about it. I was like, little things like, ironed my shirt the night before. And I was like, oh, thank you, past you. Yeah, past me. Formerly. That was very nice of you. By the way, they say the smartest people do talk to themselves. So when somebody notices me talking to myself, I'm like, yeah, I just picked the smartest person around to talk to.
I love that.
My question for you, Mark. When you thanked yourself, your yesterday self or last week's self, what did you notice? What shifted?
Uh, the little guy who I call Charlie, my inner child. I get a picture of that I saw of him when he was like, like 6 or 7. He's wearing a god awful um, polo shirt or a rugby shirt and a pair of shorts, but he did have his super kids on, so I could fly. But you know, when I said that, he just beamed.
Yeah.
So that other, and I'll talk to him, and sometimes I have to be a good parent, to him,
Yep.
uh, and but I was, he's kind of in charge of my long-term memory. So like I said, we talk, but I'm very grateful that I don't have to remember all those things. He can just send me pictures or feelings and sensations, and but I'm very grateful for all the versions of me, and the but it did make me feel, like I said, when I said that, just a smile came to my face, and it was like, because he was he felt that he got a pat on the head and a hug. So
And how much easier was it to do something for tomorrow person?
yeah, the resistance fades, basically. It's like Jordan Peterson says, you make your bed, and if your day goes to crap, well, at least your bed's made at home. So,
Yes.
but like I said, pay it forward, I believe, is theme of a movie. And when you do that, it always reaps benefits.
Yes. I've had a few people over the years. I've gotten to the point where I'm definitely unquestionably CDO about making my bed. About the creases or the way the pillows are laid in or all the above the duvet is nice and smooth. And some people are like, that's a little overkill. And I'd say, you know what? I'm worth it. Because when I walk by, I see that and I go, that's a nice looking bed. When it's time to go to bed, I look at that bed and it looks inviting. It looks like a comfortable, clean place that I want to climb in and just. And the more you get into understanding what the power is in the details, I think it makes it much easier to become detail oriented. I mean, this kind of probably to some people who are extreme minimalists looks like an anxiety hit. But because of the way that I am with organizing and laying things out, if somebody were to move something, it may take me a while to catch that it's gone, but I would know. And that's just because of the pleasure I get out of seeing things where they should be. Mark, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I've always kind of noted as a background detail that older people, now I'm one, but they always paid attention to the details,
Mm-hmm.
those tiny little things, instead of just rushing to an outcome of uncertainty. They paid attention to the little things, thanking, people, you know, you don't, somebody holds the door for you. Thank you,
Yes.
and you can tell the sincerity of it. Like, just something simple, saying thank you to the mailman as he's dropping off the mail, or mail person. I want to be politically correct. But just little tiny things that older people, I was at the post office today. I said, they're like, have a nice day. I said, well, you have the best day ever, and they're like, wow. And like, again, just little thing like that can make somebody's day, but it's the little details that, and I think older people tend to pay attention to the details
I-
now that I'm one.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think that it used to be strongly taught. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. This goes here. That goes there. This gets done when you're done. And unfortunately, I think it has kind of lost its grip over time. Luckily, here in Texas, yes, sir, yes, ma'am is still straight on. But I remember learning it in martial arts, and the amount of, no offense, ladies, but the amount of ladies that got offended when I said yes, ma'am, or thank you, ma'am. I am not that old. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. This has nothing to do with age. I say it for babies all the way up to 104. It's more of a perceived male,
I can see
perceived
that.
female. You kind of have that female vibe going on and everything. So hopefully I got a 50-50 chance of getting it right. Yes, ma'am. Mark.
Okay, I want to ask you a question, TJ.
Sure.
Okay. If you walked by your bed, okay, during the day and it was unmade, how would that make you feel?
It's easy. It's time to make the bed. even I've also learned the advantages of nap time. You know that little punishment we used to get as kids? Yeah, not so much of a punishment anymore. But if I lay on the bed and I get up from my nap, I still got to smooth it out to make sure it doesn't look like it was napped on or slept on, or because I can. Because it brings me happiness. It goes hand in hand with the saying of how you do anything is how you do everything. It's the same reason I saw a reel about a business owner. And when he had an opening and he had multiple people applying for the same job, he would go out of his way, invest the time to drive to their house, to where they lived, knock on the door with their resume, so he could get a look at their vehicle, their property, and their living conditions. And the decision, if he was torn between, he always made sure that he would have to visit at least 2, possibly 3 locations. And if they opened up the door and the house, their car was a mess, their yard was unkept, their house was a mess. Thank you for applying. I just wanted to let you know that we've decided to go with somebody else. And I wanted to tell you personally so that you didn't think that we didn't appreciate the time and investment that you put into applying for our job. best of luck in the future. If he showed up and the car was clean, maintained, within reason. If you live on a dirt road and it has 1 or 2 trips of dust on it, that's life. And yards kept up, house is opened up, and it looks clean, smells good. I just came to let you know that you've gotten the job. That decision was made right on the spot. And I did that. I had to do that with some of the rooms that I rented out for college houses. And I tell you what, I had a couple of college kids show up, and it didn't take me long. I looked at their car and I was like, no. How you do anything is how you do everything. Any other ahas, epiphanies, inputs on that before we, Holly?
Man, as always, I've got a million thoughts going on with this conversation. One of the things that keeps coming up for me, I'd never really thought about it before, but just the number of different ways that we experience gratitude. Is gratitude a feeling? Is it an action? Is it that you want to pay it forward? Is it you want to reach out to them and actually say thank you? Is it just that you're going to hold space with it and recognize something that's special? What are you grateful for? Do you take the time to be grateful even for the challenges, that sort of thing? The idea, for those of you who know that Kabbalistic story of if you're invited to a feast and you can't pay it back, but do you enjoy the feast? Is that the way that you show your gratitude for it? And then the other thought that keeps coming to my mind is you could tell a lot about your tribe based on what is gratitude to them. Because if you've got somebody who's, a little bit selfish, a little bit narcissistic, paying it forward is going to mean nothing to them. Or even enjoying it is going to mean nothing to them. And so I'm so grateful for the fact that a lot of the people in my life are the kind of people that if I pay it forward, they see that as beautiful. If I choose to enjoy it and accept the gift, I see that as beautiful. And then just the final step of, we give gratitude, but how are you at receiving gratitude when someone's grateful to you as well?
My friend, I am so grateful that you are here. And I am so grateful that you were able to get over the discomfort in your head that you had earlier on in the day. And my squirrels are flipping out because you brought up so many things that I was going to talk about and forgot about. So again, extremely grateful for you. And Lenora, keep the squirrels right there so they don't run away with that thought, because mine are so nervous right now. They're like scrambling. Being grateful for things that people don't normally say they're grateful for. Yesterday, Sunday, I did 4.5 hours of running a weed eater and pulling weeds and moving shrubs and trees and doing work. And yesterday, I was reminded that I'm not 22 anymore. And yet, I made sure that I told myself that I was grateful for the soreness in my body, because it proved to me that I have a body strong enough to do a full day's work of labor, heavy labor outside. And I've learned to be grateful for a sink full of dishes, because that meant I had enough food to eat. And I've got the dishes to eat them off of, and I have the ability to wash them. the people often looked at me funny when New Year's would run around and they're like, "So what was your resolution?" And I said, "To pay better bills." You want more bills? I said, "Yes, because that means I have more money and I have more things that I'm being blessed with." So gratitude can also take that turnaround to be grateful for things that most people complain about. Okay, Lenora, did your squirrel stay in place? Eh.
Loved what you guys are sharing. Mark had started to say about being older. You're not older, Mark. Okay, so what I like to think of it as is leaving people a little bit better than when you found them.
Yes.
So when you leave, like, they'll say, "Oh, leave the kitchen a little bit better than when you found it," or leave the toys a little bit better than when you found them if you were a kid or something like that. And I like the idea of leaving people a little bit better than when you found them. And it feels very like sprinkling kindness wherever you go, and you can offer a smile and you can hold a door and you can wave hello and stuff. And I think that's such a lovely idea. And I'm going to put a pin in receiving because, oh goodness, I have lots of thoughts on receiving, and I'll save it for hour 2.
Awesome. Mark.
Yeah, no, I'm not over the hill, Lenora.
No, you're not.
I'm coming up on the next rise.
I was like, and you're definitely not under the hill, so we are in good shape, my friend.
Yeah, no, like I said, I'm grateful for all the challenges. I forget who said it, I think it was Holly. Sometimes, like I said, the challenge over the last year was me to, up my game and realize how hard it is, to take care of a home. All the little million details that I just kind of glossed over and just expected the things, again, that now I have to, but I've become one hell of a homemaker. So I'll make somebody a good wife someday, TJ, so but yeah, I'm grateful for that challenge and I'm still like I said, that's another way I've been becoming, and I'm grateful. I'm always grateful for the challenges because then it's how much energy, effort, and resources am I going to devote to overcome this challenge,
Yes.
And I get that, and I get that with every client that walks through the door. I get that with, like I said, if I'm helping somebody, like I said, I couldn't not do that, again, because I'm never one to, what is it? I've never been one to, shirk a challenge, so,
Yep.
and I just, again, I met a new client today and, I think I made a dent, and, we're, and I'm very grateful that, that I have all the abilities, skills, and resources. That's my belief to help this new person.
Awesome. And
Yeah,
I'm
very
grateful. I'm grateful for how we can get on a topic and roll through it and burn up an hour just like that, even though we've got two topics left. Again, for those of you watching for the first time, when I say that I try to get through 3 topics, this is how it happens. I'm going to switch us over because we've got 11 minutes for 2 more topics, and I want to put us into mind reading for a little bit. And mind reading is a term out of NLP neuro-linguistic programming, but you don't have to know that to be on the show. You don't even have to know how to spell NLP. You can join us anytime. But a lot of it comes with how many issues come up when we try to mind read what the other people are thinking. Oh, they're just mad, or oh, that you meant when you said that you meant this. Oh, when you didn't show up, you meant this. When you did this, you meant that. And I know that we've talked about this before, but the twist that I got on it today was, how often do we mind read ourselves? Because we're believing that our head brain is the only brain that we have. And most people don't understand. We have at least 3 brains: the head brain, the heart brain, and the gut brain. And we'll mind read ourselves about things that happened. Well, this made me mad, so that means da da da. Instead of questioning, well, what else could it have meant? What else could have come from this? Why? What's another reason why I may have reacted like that? And instead of just rolling with the mind read that we did, doing some investigating. And I've brought up what I call protective empathy. Somebody reacts, treats you bad or something like that, and instead of doing a mind read, oh, they did that because of da 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 da. Allowing some protective empathy, going, wow, something must have happened. Wow, there's a story in there somewhere. Well, guess who else reacts and stuff? And how often do we use some protective empathy and try and figure out, why did I act like that? Why did I react like that? Why did it happen so strongly? So instead of mind reading ourselves, when can we take the time to use some protective empathy on ourselves and analyze, why are we feeling this? Where is the energy coming from? What else could it be? How else might I be able to react? Any input, Mark?
Yeah, a while back, many years, I have this book, Good Clinical Practice, and they had a whole list of these things. They were called cognitive distortions, and mind reading was in there. Other, it's the way we, distort reality. Mind reading, forecasting,
Yes.
facts as feelings, and my personal favorite, catastrophizing. So
What?
those are making everything into a catastrophe.
Oh yes, catastrophize it. I like that.
Those are all cognitive distortions. And when, if you hear yourself saying that stuff, well, you're engaging in cognitive distortions. That's what we call lies. Or that's what and that's what human beings, like I said, they will engage in all these cognitive distortions, including me, a lot, it's but it's just a distortion, and like you said, you have to examine that. Is that person, is that person looking at me a little weird, is my shirt buttoned the wrong way, you start trying to mind read the other person, and when you start doing that, you're going down that track.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you for that. Anybody else got anything they want to share in the few minis we have left? Yes, Holly.
Try to be really quick with this one, but also I think that a lot of this is about listening and learning to listen well without judgment, giving space. This is the Kai and the Jin energy and the Kuji for those who are into that. But yeah, one of the things I'm starting to learn is that if I'll be still and actually listen to my gut or my heart or whatever, or you could give it the actor on your stage, what's the name of the actress or the actor who's on stage and what do they represent. They actually often have really good things to say, and they'll say, you know what, I have a need, and you have been putting everybody else first, maybe, for example, and you've been not acknowledging my need, and that's why I'm acting out, is because you're just ignoring me. And so having that humility to sit and say, whatever you say, I'm not going to judge it. I'm just here to listen. And then we'll sit here and try to problem solve and negotiate, whatever that may be.
Absolutely. Great answer. Great input. Yes. That's what we're talking about. Anybody else, to see if I can fit in the last one in 3 minutes or less? Mark. 3. Yeah. There we are. And you guys can bring these topics back up in hour 2 if you've got some more questions or ways of looking at it. But moving into hello. And this one came from one of my Triple P clients. And they've been waffling back and forth about online dating and this way and that way, and it finally hit them. Some of the best relationships they've had, some of the best friendships they've had, started with hello, in person. And they realized the amount of people that they are around every day. And even though where they live is kind of remote, and they've got a nice place on a sizable piece of property, they still like to do things, go into town, spend time with the family, the grandkids, they like to go to concerts and all this stuff. And they realized they don't have to put pressure on electronic ways of meeting people. What they also realized was why I constantly push the trifecta. And for those of you that are new and don't know what the trifecta is, it's echo talk, 3 magic questions, and values and criteria elicitation.
I have a new thing to call it.
What?
I call it something else now.
What do you call it now?
The fastest way to make a friend.
See, that, yes. And they realized it as well, because they've gotten really good at the trifecta, and they've realized how easy it is to meet people. And the more people that you meet, and the quicker you get at learning how to ABT, always be testing, it's so much easier to understand that it won't be hard for the universe to introduce you to the right person when you are ready to meet the right person. And this isn't just for dating or marriage. This is for everything, for your tribe, for work, for a team, for all sorts of different areas where you need to meet people. And so again, hello. I've had so many relationship people that were like, oh, but I don't know anybody. I'm like, let me teach you a magic word. Hi. Or another magic word. Hello. Or a really magic phrase, out of curiosity. All of them are amazing ways to meet your best friends that you haven't met yet. People that hang out with me, my wife will tell you, I can strike up a conversation with anybody, anywhere, at any time, for any reason.
I was just saying that.
Get comfortable with hello. And I'm going to finish it with, because people will come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lesson. And sometimes it can be for as short as 3 minutes, just to reinforce or teach you how easy it is to make somebody smile and make their day. And we're going to call that the top of the hour. So for those of you, again, joining us for the first time, this is the magical time where we switch over to hour number 2, where it's open mic, open platform. Anybody on the call can bring up a question or a topic, and everybody on the call gets to answer first. So, who's got the first question, topic, something? And there we go, Lenora.
Before you even got to the polite squirrel.
Yes, the polite squirrels.
In the event that my camera goes dark, I apologize. There's quite the storm upstairs. Receiving. Okay. So here are my new thoughts about receiving. Did you know, so that we'll say, our thoughts have a frequency. We're constantly talking to the quantum field or the space of variations. We're constantly talking to the universe, whatever you want to call it. So as we're constantly talking, we're also constantly receiving. Now, this was really an awesome aha, because especially if you notice where you're receiving, you're not saying, no, I can't take my next breath. You're not cutting it off. You are quite literally receiving that next breath. Okay, so what else are you receiving? You receive a variety of things. So wherever you want to look, okay, I receive the ability to see, or I receive the ability to touch, whatever it is. And notice all the areas where you're already receiving. And then if you start to think, okay, I receive, you can even do this to money. So I receive a paycheck. Okay, so where do I want to receive money from that I'm stopping it? Or even with a relationship, I'm receiving this relationship. I'm having a good experience with this relationship. What's stopping me from receiving this relationship? So we're constantly receiving. Constantly. Notice where it feels really good, really natural, really easy for you to receive, and then also notice where it might not feel so natural or might not feel so easy. And then you can dive in and explore that a little bit more. I thought that was super cool.
That's awesome.
It not happen. So it goes in the infinite symbol. It's going out, it's coming back. It's going out and it's coming back. Oh, here's the other cool thing. As many of you have known, I had once upon a time a tricky part of thinking into the future. What if it doesn't happen? What if this doesn't happen? What if TJ laughs because he's heard me a number of times. What if it doesn't happen? What if this? What if that? Okay. So now if you're paying attention to your frequency, and all you need to know is good things. I'm just going to keep putting good out. I'm just going to keep paying attention to this frequency that I'm sending out. These are positive thoughts. I'm keeping my thoughts in in of wealth, abundance, gratitude, whatever you want to call it. I'm not entertaining these lower things, of which, so we can definitely say we don't watch the news, but be extraordinarily careful with social media because they can pop that stuff on there very easily, especially if you're in a window like Instagram on my phone. You can put like 20 windows in the box or something like that when you're on the search feed. Be careful what you're paying attention to because you are talking to the quantum field. So if you just say, okay, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to detach. I'm just going to put good out. I'm going to be unintentional, as in my only intention is for good frequencies. You're sending it out. What's coming back? Sending it out. What's coming back? And this actually helps reduce the, what do they call it? The resistance of applying this has to happen, this has to happen. I'm missing that word. And then there was one more thing. So I was at TEDx this weekend, and sometimes we can get in our head and go, okay, this person, that person, or what if this, what if that? And I was like, you know what? Completely surrender. Just show me where to go and I will show up entirely. I wrote it down. You can't see it but it is on a Post-it. And my intention was just to enjoy the day and the moment as much as possible. Oh, this is a feedback loop, by the way. And it was such a great time because I didn't think like, oh, I have to talk to this person. I have to talk to that person. I was just like, show me where you want me to go. I will show up completely. And it was absolutely spectacular. So those are my thoughts on that one.
Awesome. Mark.
Yeah, the one extra large squirrel has been whispering that I don't know where I learned it, but that your whole body, Laura, is like an antenna, okay? And I think, and constantly broadcasting and receiving at the same time. We're a transceiver, basically. That just popped into my head. But yeah, and the thing I think the word you were struggling for is sometimes distortion.
Okay.
Like a frequency distortion. Okay. Like I said, if you're not on the right frequency, you're going to get a lot of static. And from all my years as a ham radio operator, you got to be on the same frequency as someone else to establish communication. And but you're always, I think that if I imagine myself as being an antenna, big, antenna broadcasting and receiving at the same time, it kind of opens me up to, the field, the quantum field. So that was my thoughts on it.
Holly.
That comment about the radio really hit me. I'm loving this conversation. For those who, so I love looking at things from multiple angles. So I love thinking of it, as energy. But for those who want a nuts and bolts approach of why this happens and how it happens, first of all, I'd recommend. I know we've talked about it before, but Darren Brown's "The Secret of Luck," a very fascinating study in this topic. But putting it kind of in nuts and bolts. I think and I don't remember the exact units on it. I just remember the ratio. So they've discovered that we're able to take in 50 units of data. But at any given point, we have 500 units of data coming at us. So we're taking in about 10% of anything at any given point. And on top of that, there's all the stuff that we're not even physically present to take in. So, what people are saying when we're not in the room, all that sort of thing. And because of that, obviously, our brain looks for patterns, and it's going to look for patterns based on, the state we're in, the patterns that we're locked into and believing, the energy we're putting out, whatever you want to call it. And so, with The Secret of Luck, looking if you're keyed in to look for opportunities and believe that opportunities are coming your way, you're much more likely to see them. If you're looking for a tribe and you believe that people that there are good people out there that would be good members of your tribe, you're going to see them. But if you aren't primed for it and you just think, well, everybody hates me anyway, and I'm never going to be able to amount to anything, by default, you're priming your filters that the 50 units of data you're going to take in are just going to be the confirming data that confirms that bias, even if it's completely not true. And you might have 20 opportunities around you and you just can't see it because of how you're primed. So anyway, yeah, I just find it fascinating. I love looking at it, kind of from the energy perspective, but also just kind of looking at it from a nuts and bolts perspective of why is it that this even happens? And you don't have to believe in energy to know that it does happen, but you can believe in energy. And I think that helps amplify the understanding too. So
100%. You rock. And when Mark brought up the idea of frequencies and channels and everything, one of my squirrels came by and said, well, if you think about, and of course this is going to go back a ways, to CBs and scanners, especially the CBs, you had different channels for different people, and typically it was known that truck drivers would be on channel 19. And they had their own lingo. A lot of 10 code, I guess you could refer to it as. So 10.4, yeah, I got it. 10.9, and when you get in tune with your tribe, with your people, not only will you be in tune with their frequency, but your languaging. It's very evident here on Triple T. We talk about things that I know that there's a vast majority of the population that are going, what? And growing up around carpentry, construction, around machinists, around psychiatrists, as you're building your tribe, there will be languaging that will be specific to that tribe. Anybody got any other input? Mark?
Yeah, taking that metaphor again, the CB, I think again, this tribe helps amplify the frequency, of insight, gratitude, whatever. And I think when you get in the proximity, like Lenore was saying, of a TEDx, a TED Talk, environment, I think that amplifies the power. Back in the CB days, guys would have illegal boosters on their on their signal. They called them foot warmers, and they would boost their signal. And I think that's what this, like I said, I think that when you're in proximity with people who are already on your frequency, I think you can, like when I was at Hypnothoughts, I was, when we had a break the first time I'd have been hypnotized, and I was, for whatever reason, I got on the frequency of like, luck, like Holly was talking about. But it was, and it was the first, again, I gambled sporadically, different games, different things. And the entire time I was there, I never lost. And I think, looking back on it, I was, again, I was focused on the learning, but I fell into rhythm and, with the other minds, and it kind of amplified my, again, my frequency. And, who goes to Vegas and doesn't lose? Okay. And I'm talking, even in the airport, I went, into the little room with the slot machines, and I picked one that I felt had the right vibe. And put in 20 bucks, 150 cashed out. I can't lose. I literally went home with more money than I arrived with. And it was all
Yeah.
because I was on the right, it was all because of, I don't know. Like I said, being hypnotized for the first time and being around, like I said, having it amplified by all those folks at Hypnothoughts. And, but like I said, I played a whole bunch of different dumb games and couldn't lose. So, and with Darren Brown, yeah, that whole thing, Holly, that he tried to make an entire town feel that it was lucky if you, if you went to this park and there was a bronze dog, and he created the belief that if you rubbed the dog's head, good things would happen. And one guy though, he wouldn't go do it. He believed he was unlucky, and Darren tried to engineer, instances where he would be, that he couldn't lose, but he even sent him a letter that had a winning scratch ticket in it for a big screen TV. He didn't even look at it. He just threw it away. I'm not lucky, and the vibe he was putting out, like I said, he just couldn't believe it. He put money on the ground. The guy didn't see it.
Yep.
Yeah, that whole thing was, a study that, like I said, that, he just refused to see what was there. He was not open to it. So, those are my thoughts.
Exactly. Yep. Holly.
This whole conversation about radios and stuff, it's got me thinking about so I'm remembering a time at work when I was working in a special event, and they gave me a radio because I was gonna be all by myself in case I had an emergency, and there were two other people on the radio, a dispatcher and an enforcement officer. They didn't even know I was there. You could tell because they were of their conversation, and I mean, they entertained me all night long. It was awesome. But so a few things that it made me think of is, first of all, you never know who might be listening to your energy. And but at the same time, be mindful of what energy you're putting out there. But it's not a bad, scary thing, because the reason I had access to that is because I had permission to, I had a reason to, I had a right to. So know that, if somebody's listening on your frequency, they had to find a way to tune into it. They had to have, do the work to be able to even tune into that frequency in the first place. So as long as you're operating on healthy frequencies, positive frequencies, and you stay there, the only people who are going to be able to tune into your frequency and really interact with you are going to be people who are willing to also be on healthy frequencies. So that already tells you something about them if they're listening to you. So that was one thought. And then another thought, because obviously we've got, how well are you tuned into it? That's going to affect the signal. What's the amplitude of the signal? What's the quality of the signal, all that. But what TJ was talking about, the 10 codes, because one of the things I was thinking about is they were talking 10 codes all night. And I was brand new to it, so I had the 10 code, chart in front of me, and they were making, jokes all night long. I wouldn't have understood a thing they were saying if I didn't have the key. And I think this is kind of like a tie into the first hour when we were talking about listening. Whether you're listening to yourself or you're listening to others, you first need to find a way to tune into the right frequency, and how well you tune into it's going to affect how well you can hear it, or whether you're just hearing static. But also learning the language of, whether it's, once again, yourself and the other parts of you or other people around you, learning the language and what that language means to them, because we also had slightly different 10 codes with the police. So, we couldn't talk to them directly sometimes, even though there was some overlap. So we'd think we'd know what we were talking about. So anyway, I just thought that was an interesting analogy for talking to ourselves and talking to other people as well.
Again, great insights. Thank you for sharing that. And one of the squirrels ran up with another example of shared energies. And this one you ladies know all about. And because I took care of college houses, and we had college houses that were all ladies, and you can take 8 ladies and put them into a house, and a interesting phenomena happens. What am I talking about, ladies? Within a couple of weeks,
There could be a lot
That
of
he
things.
synchronizes.
Yep. And they don't have to talk about it or whatever. It just happens. And for those of you that think I'm full of it, go to a college place. So frequency is out there. Energy, you whether you want to deny it or not, it's there. Any other ahas, epiphanies, comments on frequency, or do we have another amazing topic we can bring up? Mark.
Hi. On the radio, it was like, this is dead air. You forgot to
air.
switch the mic on. Brought to you by whatever. Anyway, but the question I had been pondering the last couple of days is about self-regulation. Okay, how do we regulate ourselves? Okay, and the answer that I've been basically, thinking of is that self-regulation is about asking yourself the right questions. Okay. Because, and I've brought this up to, a bunch of people, it seems to hold water that, am I being too paranoid? Am I being too narcissistic? Okay. And that keeps us in line because, again, I think that's at the core. I want everybody's input, but at the core of self-regulation is asking yourself, am I overreacting? Am I being too emotional? By asking the right series of questions, I think we can, I think that's what self-regulation is at the core of it, so that we keep ourselves within due bounds, am I being, am I being understanding enough? Am I being, am I listening enough? Am I being, a real tool here? Because it gives us pause, to dial it back. And that, and I think that, that whole idea of self-regulation is about asking the right questions of yourself. Yes. I'd like everybody's input.
Holly.
Love this question. So what I was thinking when you were saying that, first of all, I think you are spot on that, asking ourselves questions, maybe asking the people around us that we trust questions as well could be very, very helpful. But one of the thoughts that came to my mind too is making sure, I think we've talked about the Lesotho line before, but it's this rule that says if you want to have a healthy reaction or interaction with somebody or a healthy relationship, you need to make sure you're having 7 positive for every 1 negative. So that doesn't mean you never just have the hard conversations. It doesn't mean you never ask yourself the hard questions. But I think especially when it comes to ourselves and trying to be the best we can, most of us may default to the inverse Lesotho line, where we give ourselves 7 negative for every 1 positive. Mm-hmm. That's just a gut instinct. So yes, I think it's very, very important to get that feedback. But you could also ask yourself questions like, what do I add a lot of value to the world? What ways do I add value to the world? Am I compassionate? Yes, we always want to make sure that we're doing that balance. I mean, you could get to the point where you're too easy on yourself too. And it's like, I only focus on the good stuff that I do. I never, ever, ever, look at my shadow self. I never, ever improve. I never, because I'm perfect already. I don't need to improve. Like you could go too far to the other side. So it is critically important that we're always looking for ways we can improve. But there are ways we can ask the questions about how we can improve so that it's healthier and that we're on that side of still also giving ourselves credit for the things we do right.
Great answer. Anybody else got anything to share? Radio silence, they call it.
So, someone once said the questions that we ask ourselves will determine the quality of our life.
Amen.
I would agree very much with that. Mark, I'm so sorry. I was apparently I lost my thoughts in a yawn. What was your question again? It wasn't quite self-care.
No, it was self-regulation.
Self-regulation.
Right. When again, and I agree with Holly, again, to look for feedback from, trusted, people. But I think it's the questions, like I said, that the difficult question that you have to ask yourself, am I, when you're mindful, you can ask those questions, am I being too emotional? Am I being too narcissistic? Am I being too paranoid? And I think that keeps us within, that's how we regulate ourselves from, it's a way to apply the brakes, I guess.
I like the idea of self-regulation, and I definitely believe in the ability to reflect, and we can be mindful to the best of our ability. But even like this week, and there was something that came up that I didn't even consider until I was in a very specific situation, and I was reflecting on, wow, my own thoughts of, was I able to receive this? What else why wasn't I able to receive this? And I think having conversations like this and hearing different people's perspectives, but also having one-on-one conversations with a coach or somebody who's willing to look at your thoughts with you and go, okay, well, what is it here that is kind of coming up? Because especially we can get so wrapped up in trying to solve the problem sometimes and thinking about it from different ways that if we even back up a few more steps and we look at our perspective overall and say, okay, well, what else can we consider about ourselves in order to interpret it differently? There's so many ways to go, and it could be so expansive. I think self-regulation and looking at it in conversation can be really, really helpful, or even writing it down and then offering, how else might I see this? Or why do I think this? Why is that the first stop of my thoughts?
Great stuff. Another scroll popped up and said, also, when you're asking yourself, it's one thing to ask yourself these questions. Keep track of who's asking the question, which version of you, and how are they asking the question, and why. Because there's so many different ways that questions can be asked. You could ask the same question 3 different ways. That just like on the third topic of the night, hello, I often tell people, if you're not getting good vibes back from people, how are you saying hello to them? And they'll look at me that look like, what are you talking about? I said, there are so many different ways to say that one single word. There's hello, 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 hello. Who's asking the questions? What tone are they asking the question in? How are they asking the question? How are you receiving the question? Are you in a a situation or an area where you can actually receive the question properly. When we are tired, when we've had a rough day, questions can land a whole lot differently than when we're in a good mood and we've had enough rest. And that's also part of a combination of self-regulation and frequency and receiving. Sometimes we have to look back. Why did I react that way? Frickin' had a headache. I was exhausted, and I'd been dealing with Richard craniums all day. I didn't need to figure out why I didn't put the butter back in the right place. Any ahas, inputs, epiphanies on that?
Good stuff for sure.
And that puts us in the second part of the hour. Got 29 to go. Holly.
I've got a question. So I've been having this thought a lot recently that the best things in life all occur when you get your second wind. I don't know if it's true. It's just a thought that's been going through my head. So I'm just kind of curious, like, any way you want to take this, is that true? If it is true, why would the universe be designed that way? Or also, if it is true, how can we find ways to live in that place more frequently? I'll take answers to, or any thoughts you have on the topic is fine too.
Great question. Who's got something for Holly?
Why good things come on a second wind?
Yeah, kind of just the idea that the best things in life all seem to come when you hit your second wind, which for those who don't know, your second wind is kind of like when you're running, and this obviously not just running, but when you're running and you have that point where you feel like you're going to die, if you keep pushing through, you get this second wind, and all of a sudden, it's like, how did I think I was going to die? This is amazing.
I don't know. Go for it, Mark. Yeah, I don't.
Mark.
Yeah. Again, harkening back to what we were talking about earlier, like I said, when you get your second wind, I think that's when you fall in. Like I used to run with a group, and when you get that, it was a group, and we used to run at lunchtime, and of course everybody had to bring a joke, so we had to, so you had to stay in an aerobic state. But when you get that second wind, it was like you just relaxed. You just fell into rhythm with everybody else. You're breathing. That second wind is like when like I said, you fall into rhythm, you fall into frequency. The vibe is right, and you're not running, you're having a good time, and laughing, and and it was a bonding experience. When you get your second wind, you just relaxed, and like I said, you fell into rhythm, and it was a very again, there was a moment of just relaxation and elation that you hit your second wind. Okay, so felt like you could run forever. So when you get your second wind, it's very powerful to get that second wind, and it happens a lot in different. You start doing a task, and it's make work, and and it's not, and then what is it, that Billy Joel video, when you get your second wind, it's like you get a fresh perspective, and but there's an elation when you get your second wind that again, I think it's it tells you that again, hey, this is great, this is awesome, and you get that, but mostly is that feeling of just relaxation and falling into rhythm with everyone, with, what's going on around you. And and you find that level of energy that you didn't really know you had.
Great answer.
I'm wondering also maybe because the drop is so fresh in your mind. You're like just thrilled to not be in that space.
My squirrels came up with an idea that part of it, like when you're running or doing something strenuous like that, I think it's a part of a belief system that I've made it this far. Well, if I've made it this far, I can make it a little farther. Gosh, I made it a little farther. I can probably make it even farther than that. And if you've done that a couple of times, you have the knowledge that there is more inside of you. When that second wind hits, a lot of people, if they know you really well, they can see where you're exhausted, and then all of a sudden you're just like, nope, gonna do it. And that determination hits, or whatever the recipe is, they hit their second wind. And then I think it's also understanding how your energy in your body works. If you're doing something that you want to do or enjoy doing, or you have no choice other than you have to get it done, you can find those reserve energies that were hidden before, and it allows you to power through to get to the finish line. Mark.
Yeah, we just had the Boston Marathon last weekend, and there's a particular point they call it Heartbreak Ridge, and you see these people. It's like, if they can make it up Heartbreak Ridge, it's still miles and miles to the finish, but if they can conquer Heartbreak Ridge, they get this elation. Oh, if I did that, now I can do anything.
Yep.
And it gives them that second win for the second half of the race, because that's the tallest hill, and and everybody calls it Heartbreak Ridge. And you made it over Heartbreak Ridge. Oh, this is so great! Everybody's cheering. The crowd is into it, and yeah, once you make it past Heartbreak Ridge, it's all downhill to the finish line.
Exactly. It's also kind of like your chi energy, when, like, the number of times, you guys don't know how many times I have been exhausted just before Triple T. Had a full day, but as soon as I sit down, light goes on, boom. I have that extra reserve of energy that hit. If I can get, even when I was had my DJ business and my photography business, it didn't matter how tired I was. When the lights turned on, or the customers showed up, or it was time to do something, I was able to find that energy because I enjoyed what I was doing, of entertaining and helping other people. When you're doing, like Lillian Pearl Bridges said, if you're on your path, on your golden path, the amount of energy that you will be able to conjure up to do the tasks is way more than when you're doing something that you're not in alignment with. I know. I've had soul-sucking jobs, and I'm grateful for them because it taught me what it feels like to have a soul-sucking job. And trying to get through the day at those places was horrible. It was like trying to run through waist high mud. And then when I found a job or, stuff like this, it's almost effortless. I can help people doing this stuff all day long. Mark.
I'm trying to, Holly also mentioned, why is the universe, wired this way? I think it's because it's kind of designed to push us beyond our limits. We have people have coaches, and coaches, they usually push us beyond what we think we can do. And, and as long as you still, again, I think the universe is wired that way. It's constructed that way to push us farther and further, than even we think we can go. The silly example is, we used to play basketball on Sunday morning at this outside court, and if you won, you kept the court. And we'd bring enough guys for a team, and we would win 3 or 4 games in a row. So you didn't get off the court, you didn't get a breather, and I would be dog tired going up the court. Somebody threw me the ball. Ooh, ball. Ooh, ball. And I would, reach down deep and I would run up the court. I was like, but I think the universe is designed, that, it's wired in to push us beyond what we think our limits are. And I hope that answers that piece of what Holly was talking about. Why is the universe designed this way? I think it's designed to, maybe, again, I don't know, but might be because it's designed to push us beyond what we think our limits are, and that's my thought.
And teach us that the comfort zone might be a nice place to visit, but nothing grows there. That you have to reach out, step out of your comfort zone, and I've known some people that have lived wonderfully in a mediocre life by my standards. But I can't do that. And I do my best to help others not live a mediocre life as well. Lenora.
So it's so funny about the comfort zone. And here's what's really interesting is that your comfort zone expands as you grow. So you constantly have to keep moving beyond it because you're actually getting comfortable in the things that you're advancing. And there was a great talk this weekend, and I have no doubt that it'll be published. And his name was Travis, and he's in the military. And he created what he calls the cycle of positive expansion. And it goes inspiration, motivation, activation, self-limiting beliefs. Then you get into coaching and learning, implementation, discipline, and success. And this goes in a cycle. And in the center of this was your comfort zone. And as you go and advance in life, and if you're thinking of it as an ascension, this cycle starts like this, and then it gets bigger and it gets bigger and it gets bigger as it continues to go up, because your comfort zone that's in the center builds and builds and builds.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Mark.
I just thought of a better example, but for Holly, I was just thinking when Roger Bannister, broke the 4-minute mile, that everybody was in the comfort zone. Oh, no human being can run a sub 4-minute mile except for his coach. And he said, well, if I get the right athlete and train them the right way, yeah, I can do it. And but there was such a comfort zone, a belief, a limiting belief that no human being could run a sub, we were physically incapable. And then he was at the British Olympic trials, and he broke the the 4-minute mile, and he comes running over to the coach and he says, "Hey, coach, can you believe it? I ran a mile in less than 4 minutes." The coach is like, "Yeah, you've been doing that for months. I just didn't want to tell you because if I did, you'd figure a way to screw it up. You know."
Yep.
Oh, you know, he because he had a great coach, he was able to move beyond the comfort zone that everybody else was in. Everybody else had that self-limiting belief, except for that coach. You know, even the runner, he didn't realize that he had already been doing it. So, you know, again, sometimes we need others to push us beyond our limits.
Well, another one kind of in line with that. Back in the day, they made sure that they didn't produce automobiles that could go over 55 miles an hour because they knew that if you drove that fast, you would suffocate because you would be moving so fast you wouldn't be able to get the air in your lungs. You would suffocate and die. So you couldn't build a car that fast. And then somebody did and lived. And then they went, well, how fast can we go? And it's been going on ever since. Elijah, good to see you here, brother. You wouldn't happen to have a question or a topic for us to... You got a question? Okay,
I have a question. I know we're ready to move on. Good morning, Elijah. My question is about what are your thoughts on soul contracts? And there was that piece. And so when I've heard this concept, I thought that they were soul contracts with just other people. And I did not understand that they also can be considered contracts that you have with yourself, that you came here to do certain things, and if you're fulfilling your soul contract. Thoughts?
Okay, who's got some input for Lenora? Holly.
Okay, I could be completely wrong on this. This is just some things I've heard. But so first of all, I've kind of been told that there's two kinds of soul contracts. And yes, you absolutely can have some with yourself, with the universe, with, whatever it is. You've got the ones that are, shall we say, positive, healthy ones that help you fulfill your mission in life. And then you also have the ones that maybe come from a place of limiting beliefs, that come from a place of guilt, shame, whatever, that maybe are holding you back from accomplishing your mission in life. So I think they're two totally different attitudes towards one, because obviously one is a little bit more helpful than another one. When it comes to the soul contracts for our mission in life, this, comes from people who've had NDs. I think I've told you before that, told everyone before that my previous boss was very interested in those and went to a lot of those meetings. But a common thing that was said is that people are worried if they're going to be able to fulfill their mission in life and fulfill those soul contracts. And they said almost everyone manages to do it. So if that gives you a lot of comfort in, you will always be given the resources you need to do it. One thing that we may not realize too is that sometimes we think we have to do it right the first time. It's like, no, when we were coming down, we knew it was going to take practice. We knew we were going to get it wrong in places, So they were saying something like 99% of people end up fulfilling their soul contracts when it comes to their mission. And I thought that was a beautiful, very comforting thing to hear because, the stress could be on. When it comes to the soul contracts, like, for instance, if you're punishing yourself for something in the past, that sort of thing. One thing, and I think this feels familiar. I don't know if we were talking about contracts last week or when it was, but in order for a contract legally to be binding, there are certain criteria that need to be met. And one of them is that both people in the contract have to experience something called consideration. So in other words, both people have to be getting value out of it. So if one person's not getting value, it's immediately null and void. Another thing is, the person has to be competent to even make the contract. So for example, if you make a contract with a 3-year-old child, it's null and void because a 3-year-old child is not considered old enough. I mean, yeah, if you're a parent saying, I'm going to make a contract with you that if you go to bed, I'm going to give you, whatever. Like if you're trying to do a teaching, you might be able to do it, but it's not going to be enforceable in a court of law because you just made a contract with a
Totally,
child.
totally.
And so one thing to think about, and I could go on with, the things you have to have contracts, but we're allowed to tear up those past contracts if they came from a place of, hey, you know what? As a spiritual being or whatever you want to call it, energetic being, I was a minor back then. I wasn't allowed to make this contract, so null and void. Or, you know what? I thought punishing myself was going to help the other person, but I now understand they aren't being helped by me anyway. And so I'm not getting consideration out of this contract. They're not getting consideration out of this contract. We're allowed to tear it up. We're allowed to throw it out. So I think it is important to realize that we always have the capability of renegotiating our contracts. So if there's any contract that's you want to enter into that you haven't previously done so, you're allowed to do that with, that I think I've said before, I've learned with contracts, you always have the opt-out clause. You always put in if either party decides at some point, or multiple parties, if any party decides at some point that this is not right for them, all they have to do is give, 180 days notice or 90 days notice, whatever it is people need to have time to, to pivot. And you're allowed to give the notice and get out of the contract. And so, but yeah, you could sign any new contracts you want, and you could tear up any old contracts and renegotiate them. You have that right if they're not working for you.
There. The ability to renegotiate contracts is something that so many people miss. Asking for raises, changes in parameters and things of that nature. And it ties into the comfort zone and fear of retaliation, I believe. Mark.
Well, a rainbow-colored squirrel just popped in and said, what about the Santa Claus? And I think it was the third one, he finally found the escape clause where he didn't have to be Santa forever and ever. And like Polly was saying, there's got to be an opt-out even in the Santa Claus. So, but the question I had for Lenore, again, contract is between two entities, we'll say, can even be, between your younger self and your older self, or your previous self, and but when you say that soul clause, who are you making the agreement with? Is it a higher power? Is it your higher self? Is it a previous self? Is it what is a soul contract? Who are the parties involved? So, oh.
And we did touch on this lightly last week for Triple T under the topic of protective promise. But of course, it was the third topic, so we had limited time, kind of like we do now with 7 minis left. But you may recall where I brought up that one of my clients was trying to figure out why they were having so much trouble getting over and forgetting exes, past lovers, things of that nature. And they realized that they had made verbal contracts with all of those people. I will love you forever. I will never leave you. I will always be here. And in light of how you brought it up, Lenora, I think it also applies to things that we promise ourselves. I will go to the gym. I will make this change. I will do this. I will do that. And we make verbal contracts with ourselves without giving ourselves permission for renegotiating or breach of contract. Lenora.
There was something also, and so yes, soul contracts. What's really interesting is that we make human vows. Like, I vow to not go against the family belief, or I vow to, what we consider our beliefs. Sometimes they're also called vows when they're quite literally embedded that deeply that people aren't aware of them. And one of them is like if you look at the financial thermostat, I vow not to make more money because then I will be seen as such and such. So I always found that piece very interesting.
Great answer. Holly.
I just had this thought. I don't know how many of you have seen the Good Place, but there's just this scene that popped into my head. Hopefully not too many spoilers, but basically they're in the afterlife. And somebody's having trouble because they were previously married in a previous existence. And somebody comes up with this ceremony and she gets a certificate that says, "At death we did part." And I was just thinking about that too. If you're ever struggling with a past life thing, like you aren't even the same person anymore. You aren't the person who signed that when you die. And I think that's also true in this life, that you're not the same person you were 20 years ago. And so you can also use the argument, yes, I am not bound by that anymore because I didn't sign it. And just because some previous version of me, I might have to take a certain amount of responsibility, but it only goes so far.
My client even gave themselves permission to void out the contracts that they had verbally spoken to their children. Not that they're dropping everything for their kids, but their kids are now 18. And so it was time to renegotiate the contract as to what the parental obligation meant to them. And it also allowed for the kids to be able to create new contracts with their families that they were building on their own in respect to their parents. Anybody else got any input, ahas, epiphanies on that? We got 4 minis left. Really? Then here's a question for you guys. What would you consider to be the difference between a contract and a New Year's resolution? Anybody? Holly.
I'll throw this out there. I think it depends on the person. And this might be why I have a pretty good track record of meeting my New Year's resolutions, but I think it's because I approach them as contracts. But I think one is kind of done more on a whim. Often it's also, we were talking about contracts with yourself, but often we look at contracts as being with other people. Were you sober on New Year's when you made your resolution? That's hilarious. Comment in the chat for you.
Yeah.
That's amazing. But yeah, sometimes I think that we take our commitments to other people more seriously than we take our commitments to ourselves. So that could be a big difference too.
I think you hit a really strong part there about how strongly we take our commitments to ourselves versus our commitments made to others. Mark.
Just the whole idea of a vow that Lenora brought up, the word popped up, a tontine, which is, an agreement between a group. And I think what Holly's touching on is if you make like when I quit smoking, we did a New Year's resolution that we're all going to quit smoking. And it was my mother-in-law and my wife. And we, remember the story of this group of guys that they get down to in World War II, and they were in this chateau, and they get down to the last bottle of brandy, and they made a tontine or a vow that the surviving member, the last member alive, would open the bottle of very old brandy and make a toast to all his former comrades, and again, it was a vow, but it was a vow made amongst a group, and they waited to, the surviving member, followed through with the tontine to, to drink, to toast all his comrades that had gone before him. So sometimes New Year's, like I said, those types of vows or, can be, more binding amongst a group, Just a thought.
Great stuff. And Elijah posted in the comments, for those of you that are watching YouTube or watching the recording, you don't get the enjoyment of seeing the comments. The magician's fourfold law is to know, to will, to dare, and to keep silent. Excellent way to finish off Triple T number 174. You guys are so awesome. I'm so grateful for all of you. Just so you know that. Sometimes I just don't have the vocabulary to express how I feel about all of you. And those of you watching out on YouTube, love you, Mom. And I've made a promise to all of you that I would keep this to 2 hours. Otherwise, I know it could go into 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 hours straight. Right, Elijah? Because both of us have that capacity. This is what we do. This is what we love. We love helping other people. So if you know anybody that would benefit from these recordings, please share them. Not for my glory, but just to help us get the word out, help as many people. When, Lenora? And where?
The tswb.com. You can find them, or you can find them on YouTube. And Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern.
That was not the
Where
answer
we were going with?
I was expecting. No, and that was, and I appreciate that, because it also, we get to help people anytime, anywhere, for any
Gotcha.
reason.
I was writing down Elijah's
Yes.
the magician's fourfold. So when you were like, where can you find the record, or where can you find the more of these episodes? That was my thought.
Yes. No, and I appreciate that.
Way to close the loop, though.
No, right? And there you have it, folks. So again, thanks for showing up, sharing your very precious commodity of time, which you've heard me say 174 times, well, at least 170 is the one thing I can't give back. As soon as I can figure out how to reproduce time and give it back, you guys will be the second to know. So until then, thank you. God bless. Please go out and live the best life that you possibly can. And if there's anything I can do to help you with that, please let me know. See you guys back here in 7. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, TJ. Bye, everyone.
Good night, all.
Feel better, Holly.